The government rolled out a controversial new experiment. Reporters took to the streets, asking people how they felt about the prison island. Most responded with relief, even enthusiasm. Many saw it as the smartest decision the state had made, one that promised safety by removing dangerous criminals from society. Some even admitted they preferred letting the criminals destroy each other rather than keeping them alive at taxpayers' expense. Later, we find a group of journalists reviewing the street interviews, preparing to air them on national television. Through their discussion, we learn that 3 years earlier, the death penalty for first-degree murder had been abolished. In its place, the government introduced permanent exile to a mysterious place called Prison Island. There, inmates are left to fend for themselves, with no hope of returning. To ensure no one escapes, the island is encircled by deadly underwater mines, and the only navigable sea route is closely guarded by a Navy destroyer. With security this tight, escape is considered impossible. The network's producers decide to shoot a brand new documentary focusing on life inside the prison. They handpick several notorious criminals to feature in the film, each one infamous for their crimes. Among them is Bobby Fair, who pulled off a $2 million bank heist but refused to share the loot. Lee Phillips, who planted a bomb at a bank and threatened to kill the manager. Joy Lang, who poisoned her own husband. And Dr. Norman Malford, the so-called mercy killer, known for his cold detachment from reality. The crew is confident the film will draw public attention, but as their project takes shape, another convict arrives at the island, Carmen Sams. Her escort reads her the court's ruling, life in exile at San Bruno Maximum Security Detention Center. From this day forward, she is considered legally dead. The state will never recognize her as a living person again. Angry and devastated, Carmen refuses to sign the acknowledgement form and hurls it into the sea. Her rage turns to fear when she sees a corpse drifting in the waves. When she reaches the beach, she finds more bodies washed ashore, an ominous welcome to her new life. Alone, disoriented, and abandoned, she sits down, trying to collect herself. From a nearby cliff, a mysterious man watches her in silence. Carmen, unaware she's being observed, tries to light a fire, but fails. The harsh reality of survival on the island begins to sink in. She's not ready for this kind of life, and she's not alone. As the man approaches, Carmen grips an axe tightly, prepared to defend herself. Fear pulses through her. She has no idea who he is or what his intentions are. But to her surprise, he speaks gently, introducing himself as a former doctor. He says he's used to greeting new arrivals on the island and assures her he means no harm. She tells him her name is Carmen. He responds, "I'm Norman Malford." As they talk, Norman starts explaining how life works on the island. He tells her there's a camp nearby where around 40 people currently live. It used to be 75 when the Exile project first began, but over time, that number has dropped. Some were killed, others died naturally. When Carmen asked about the corpses she saw on the shore, Norman just chuckled bitterly. "What did you expect? Everyone here is a criminal." But then, unexpectedly, he tells her that he himself is innocent, that he never killed anyone, and ended up on the island unjustly. Before she can ask more, Norman quietly walks away, leaving Carmen alone on the beach to process everything. That night, she sleeps under the stars. By morning, Carmen decides to head to the camp. As she walks in, she sees men in uniforms moving about, each assigned to a specific task. The camp has its own brutal order. Then the camp's leader, Bobby, appears, stern and commanding, alongside his right-hand man, Monk. As Carmen approaches, the entire camp turns to watch. Bobby sends Monk to deal with her. But Monk is aggressive and disrespectful. Carmen stands her ground and talks back, refusing to be intimidated. Offended, Monk lashes out, striking her in front of everyone. His message is clear. In this place, power belongs to them, and obedience is not optional. Once he's finished asserting his dominance, Bobby tells everyone to get back to work. Later that night, the women return to the communal hut they share. But when they find Carmen sleeping in one of the beds, they're furious. One of the women drags her out violently, hitting her without mercy. Confused, Carmen doesn't understand what she's done wrong. Then a woman named Joy steps in and stops the attack. She helps Carmen up and begins to explain how things work here. Carmen quickly realizes that life on the island is governed by a brutal and unspoken system, one where women are treated as possessions and expected to obey the men. Even after she's thrown out of the hut, Carmen isn't safe. Outside, two men wait and force her back in. She's stunned and demands to know what's happening. The other women explain that they're not allowed to leave the hut ever. There are no other women on the island, and the men keep them locked inside to maintain full control over them. They're not seen as people, they're seen as property. This harsh reality shakes Carmen, but her inner strength rises. She refuses to be broken. She tells the others not to touch her again and threatens the woman who attacked her earlier, revealing that she once ended her former cellmate's life and wouldn't hesitate to do it again. Carmen makes it clear she won't be controlled by anyone. The next day, to avoid further conflict, Carmen begins working like the other women. The tasks are grueling, back-breaking labor under constant pressure. It becomes obvious that the men see the women as nothing more than slaves. Carmen couldn't understand why the women continued to endure such degrading treatment. She soon discovered that any woman who resisted orders was instantly executed. She also learned that a group of inmates had already abandoned the camp and settled in another part of the island. Carmen began to think about joining them, but her friend warned her, saying everyone on the island was dangerous and that no one could predict how those outside the camp might treat her. One day, a woman offered a bottle of water to one of the standing guards, but he threw it back in her face and humiliated her in front of everyone. Chino, the youngest among the men, witnessed the incident and felt pity for her. Wanting to comfort her, he approached, but his leader didn't approve. Bobby struck Chino in public, igniting the young man's fury. Chino drew a knife and got ready to confront him, but Monk stepped in at the last second to stop the fight. In the end, the woman was the one who got punished. Bobby humiliated her with degrading words and ordered her to work on constructing a new storage hut as punishment. All the women were forced into heavy labor at the construction site, struggling to carry massive stones that overwhelmed their strength. Dr. Norman noticed Carmen's injured hands and approached her to offer help, but she lashed out at him, blaming him for not warning her about the horror of this place if he really cared. He defended himself, explaining that had he left her alone at the beginning, she would certainly have died, and that, as terrible as it was, the camp was still the safest place on the island. At that moment, Monk appeared, saw what was happening, and immediately ordered Carmen back to work. After finishing their work for the day and returning to the cabin, Monk forced them to work another shift through the night. The next morning, prisoners lined up for food, but a violent clash broke out, ending with one prisoner being killed. The others tossed the body into the ocean, while the women washed clothes nearby. Carmen noticed a girl who never spoke, and she was told that she'd been in shock ever since her entire family was murdered. Suddenly, a group of escaped prisoners stormed the camp, killed the guards, and took the women with them. Monk was terrified to report the ambush to Bobby, afraid of his rage. That evening, the escapees and the women sat around a fire, celebrating their temporary freedom and joking about how furious Bobby must be. The next day, they started discussing their next steps and what to do with the women. Carmen firmly said she would never go back to Bobby and chose to stay with the escapees. A heated debate broke out, dividing them into smaller factions. Joy began training with a gun, and during one of her outings, Lee found a strange stone in the water. He explained to Joy that it was potassium nitrate. She told him that if they could find sulfur to mix it with it, they could make gunpowder and grenades. When one of the men came to check on them, Joy jokingly said they were preparing for World War II. Meanwhile, Carmen gave her lover Aji a poisonous plant and explained how to extract poison from it, a skill she learned from her grandmother. She was willing to do whatever it took to protect herself. Aji, noticing her anxiety, handed her his knife, but Carmen was more interested in understanding his intentions. She asked him, "Why did you rescue the women from Bobby and his gang?" He replied calmly, saying he didn't like hunting alone and preferred the company of others. It became clear that Aji admired her, and he started treating her with kindness and respect. For the first time, Carmen felt like a man was treating her with dignity. They agreed to pick berries while Aji went to search for food. Elsewhere, Bobby was seething with anger. He ordered Monk to scour the island in search of the fugitives. Back at the camp, Joy and her friend Easy found a beehive and came up with a mischievous plan. Joy lured one of the men toward the hive, and he was badly stung by bees, forcing him to dive into the water in pain. Everyone burst into laughter at his ridiculous state. But the laughter was cut short when Bobby's men suddenly attacked. A violent clash broke out between Cornell and Monk, each trying to kill the other. Amid the chaos, the others used the opportunity to flee. They later laid traps for Bobby's men, successfully slowing them down and escaping again. Monk returned to Bobby empty-handed and reported that 2 of their men had been killed. Bobby was furious and berated Monk harshly for his failure. Meanwhile, the escapees regrouped in a safer place, trying to treat a wounded person. Aji bravely volunteered to find a doctor despite the danger. Sadly, by the time he returned, the injured man had already died. Sitting together, the group discussed their next move and came to a realization. Constantly running wasn't a sustainable solution. Aji said, "Our only option now is to get rid of Bobby and his men. It's the only way we'll ever live in peace. No one's leaving this island. We can't live our whole lives running." The women fully supported the idea, and together they agreed it was time to fight back. The next morning, everyone got to work preparing weapons. Carmen made the poison she had promised and warned them that just a small dose could kill instantly. More men joined the resistance, and Dr. Norman stood with them, pledging his full support. Meanwhile, one of Bobby's men had been tinkering with a small radio and managed to catch a weak signal. At the same time, Lee and his team continued mixing ingredients for their handmade bombs. During a test, one guy jokingly threw a bomb, causing panic, but they forgot to light the fuse so it didn't explode. Elsewhere, one of Bobby's men caught Bonnie while she was bathing by the waterfall and kidnapped her. Another man tried to attack Easy. Bobby, now excited that his radio picked up a clear signal, started listening in on communications from the surveillance ship. He was already plotting to trap the rebels. Soon after, everyone noticed Bonnie was missing. They found her tied up by the sea, not realizing it was Bobby's trap. As they rushed to help her, Bobby stayed hidden, waiting for the police boat to come and deliver supplies. When the police saw Bonnie tortured and tied, they jumped in to save her. As she ran away, one of Bobby's men snuck onto the boat, killed an officer, stole his gun, and shot the rest of the officers on the beach. He handed out weapons to Bobby's men and placed a guard on the boat before returning to camp. Aji and his group saw it all and started questioning how Bobby always seemed to know everything, including the police's arrival time. They realized there was a traitor or a spy and began planning how to escape. During the march back, one of Bobby's men complained about Bobby's brutality, and Bobby killed him on the spot. Easy, being a strong swimmer, snuck through the water, silently took out the boat guard, and gave the group access to the boat and weapons. They also found gas pipes they could use in their ambush plan. Just then, Bonnie came back, badly injured. The doctor rushed to treat her. Meanwhile, Monk realized most of their fighters had been killed. He tried to talk to Bobby, but Bobby shut him down, first threatening him, then pretending to trust him again. That night, in a rare moment of calm, the doctor shared his story. He told how he was wrongly accused and forgotten by the world. It was the first time he opened up. The next morning, they approached Bobby's camp, only to find it deserted. Aji warned the others that it might be a setup. Still, they chose to follow through with the plan. Everyone took their assigned positions. The women held gasoline and grenades. Joy stayed alert on the lookout and passed instructions to Bonnie. Tyler poured gasoline through pipes leading to Bobby's hiding spot. Joy told Bonnie to ignite the pipes once she saw a handkerchief signal. The battle began. Explosions shook the camp, killing many of Bobby's men. Gunfire rang out. Cornell was killed during the shootout. Lee, desperate to end it, approached Bobby's hideout and threw a grenade, but he shot her. She barely made it out alive. Monk was also shot by mistake. Bobby thought he was one of the attackers. He then blamed Monk for wasting ammo. Joy gave the signal, but Bonnie, overwhelmed with emotion, froze. Instead of lighting the gas, she ran to help a wounded friend. Bobby shot her down. The doctor rushed in, pulled her to safety, and finished the mission. He ignited the gas-filled pipes leading straight to Bobby's bunker. He didn't realize it until it was too late. He and Monk were burned alive. After that, peace returned. The survivors built a new life without fear or control. Joy fell in love and was overjoyed to find out she was pregnant. Monk, it turned out, had survived, but he was now blind and followed orders without resistance. One day, a police ship returned. The officer told the doctor that his case would be reopened and he might finally be proven innocent. But the doctor replied, "That man is gone. He died long ago." He chose to stay on the island, telling Bonnie he loved her and had finally found a life worth living. In the final scene, a new prisoner arrives. The doctor steps forward, smiling warmly to greet her, just like he once did with Carmen. And that's the end of today's film. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a new upload. We're on a mission to hit 100,000 subscribers, and we need you to get there. Let's grow together.